y'all, Dixie here. Today I want to talk to you about post-trail depression. So this topic is a little more serious or maybe a little more deep than the topics that I usually cover, but it is a very real thing that I think needs addressing, because usually people talk about through hikes or even, extended section hikes as something that's almost like a fairy tale. I mean, of course you have bad days and you get rained on and blisters and injuries and things like that. Everyone knows that there are ups and downs, but I feel like something that's not addressed as often as it should be is kind of reacclimating to everyday life. So today I want to kind of cover maybe what post-trail depression is and how it tends to affect people, and then maybe some tips to help with that if you find yourself experiencing post-trail depression after a through hike or, again, an extended hike of any kind. But before I delve too much into this, I just want to throw the disclaimer out there. I'm not a professional on this topic. I'm just sharing what I experienced and what other people around me experienced. Before I started my first through hike, so my hike on the Appalachian Trail, I had kind of heard of post-trail depression. I read about it a little bit online, maybe in some blogs and things like that, but I kind of thought, well, it doesn't really make sense. Why would somebody experience depression after accomplishing such a huge goal and, being able to chase a dream? And I wondered myself, is it even real? Like, is it actually a thing? Or, I don't know. I just didn't think that I would necessarily have anything like that after completing such a major accomplishment. But I was definitely wrong, and post-trail depression was something that I experienced after really each of my through hikes, but I've gotten better and better at channeling that and dealing with it and turning that energy into something else. And I've heard that sentiment from others who have said, I didn't really know what to expect. I had heard about it, but I wasn't really that worried about it, and then it hit me a lot harder than I ever thought that it would. The best way that I can try to relate it to maybe somebody who's never experienced anything like that is, say you do go on a vacation to the beach and it's wonderful and you spend a week or more out on this wonderful trip, and then there's something about when you get back home after being on cloud nine that is just like, oh man, and say a Monday after a vacation feels a lot more rough than a general Monday. I mean, all Mondays aren't great, right? But like after you've had all of that time off work, it's kind of hard to get back in that swing of things. So I would say that post-trail depression is very similar to that, but a lot more intense. Let's talk a little bit now about how or why this ends up happening to folks. So you take a person who lives in the normal world and is used to the rat race of life and everything, but maybe they feel like something is lacking, or they've had this dream of through hiking for a really long time, and they just feel like they're not meant to live the life that they're currently living, and they want to get out there and do something big like a through hike. So then they get out on the trail, and there's a lot of excitement to start with because it's completely new. And every day you're waking up somewhere different. Every day you're seeing different things, even though, yes, the routine of a through hike is pretty much the same, but you get to design your life exactly how you want to the whole time you're out there. You're suddenly getting plenty of exercise when before you were probably sitting in a cubicle in front of a computer a lot of your day. And now you're seeing all these beautiful sights. You're meeting new people who are very passionate about their journey also, and you're working towards a steady goal every day, and you're constantly seeing some kind of progress as you chip away at the miles. And then in addition to all of that, you're meeting kind people who are helping you all along the way, whether it's hitchhiking or trail angels who are out there doing trail magic that are just out of the kindness of their heart saying, here, have this, or here, let me help you, because they believe in you. And towards the end of a through hike, it's interesting because, I was ready to be done. I was exhausted. I was just worn out. I was beat up physically, emotionally. I just wanted to see that sign on Katahdin and reach it and touch it and be done with my goal. And then suddenly I'm there and I touch the sign and I've completed one of the greatest accomplishments of my life. And in that moment, honestly, it kind of felt in one way so amazing, and in the other almost kind of numb, because I didn't have exactly all of the answers that I had hoped I would have when I touched that sign. I was closer, I did know a lot more about myself, and I did realize that for myself, I didn't want to live life at the whims of someone else. I didn't want someone else designing my life and telling me how to live it. And so it's almost like you've been awakened to this real you inside of you. But now it's like, where do I go from here? So then a lot of people find they get home and they're actually pretty excited to go back home and see their family and friends. But what I realized and what a lot of my fellow thru-hikers have realized is that when you get there, you suddenly feel like less connected with the people that you love. And my friend Perk, who thru-hiked also the AT, PCT, and CDT, told me that this feeling to him was the closest thing to the feeling he had when he came home from being overseas. Perk was in the Navy. And he said, it's not exactly the same thing, of course, because, you're not out there risking your life, like protecting your country, but you are out there in a situation where there are minimal stresses every day. Am I going to have enough food? Am I going to have enough water? And you're going through this experience with all these other people, but the only folks that can truly relate to the experience are the ones who went through it with you. And one of my other friends who I knew on the AT said that he really thinks that this is a reflection of potentially what is wrong with society. We've put ourselves in this synthetic world, if you will. That's what I call it. Everyone on trail likes to call it the real world, or, back to normal life when referring to everyday life off trail. But I really feel like on trail and the way you live there is more like real life and where we came from as humans. So we've built up this synthetic world around ourselves based around, comfort and convenience. And a lot of those things are wonderful. I mean, don't get me wrong, I really love being able to flush my toilet instead of dig a cat hole sometimes. But I just think that he's pretty spot on with that. It's not normal for humans to sit in these boxes and sit in front of these screens all the time and not experience nature and feel challenged and just, passionate about something. So I won't say that every thru-hiker is definitely going to experience this when they get home, but of the thru-hikers that I've talked to about this, I would say the majority of the folks that I know that either attempted or completed a thru-hike and then came home, easily the majority experienced some form of post-trail depression. So some of the ways that myself and other people recognize this in themselves is that they got home, they felt like isolating themselves, they didn't really want to get a job, they had a lack of motivation, they found that everything just seemed so difficult and exhausting and so complicated back in normal life. Some people notice an extreme longing for that trail life again. Some folks experience substance abuse or just an extreme sense of feeling down or potentially even suicidal thoughts. But now I want to cover some of the ways to maybe mitigate or even prevent post-trail depression. So the first thing I suggest is just recognize that it is a possibility, something that you could experience, and look for those signs once you're done with your hike. Another thru-hiker that I talked to even mentioned that she didn't really feel it until a year or more later. So just be aware that it could happen. Next, stay connected with your tramily. So your trail family, the friends you meet out on trail, I would recommend finding them on Facebook or other social media, swapping phone numbers with them, whatever you have to do, emails. That way, when you're kind of feeling down and out, and they probably are too, y'all can talk to one another. I don't know how many times I've called Rigga and Perk, and we reminisce about the trail and remember when this happened, or remember when that happened, or I'm thinking about you, or hey, are you doing okay? Those things are really important. And those are the people who are your crew, and they're going to be able to relate to you more than anybody else, and they don't get sick of hearing your stories because they lived it too, and it's exciting to them also. Next, simplify life. So I think that a lot of folks experience this when they get home from a thru-hike. They realize all this junk they have that they don't need. You just lived for 5 to 6 months with a pack on your back that had everything you needed in it. And now you get home and you're like, do I really need all of these things? So cull some of that stuff from your life, simplify, minimize, and even sometimes that means culling relationships. If you have toxic relationships in your life that they're really not doing you any good, maybe it's time to get rid of some of that clutter too. Just whatever you think in your life will help you simplify it, because again, even the simplest chores and the things that you were previously doing in normal life might seem excessive or exhausting. So again, finding a way to simplify and kind of streamline things so that you can focus on, living and enjoying life. Keep exercising. Now, for myself, I had thought about going on some day hikes and stuff when I got back, but honestly, I just didn't really feel like it. I just felt like it would not quench the thirst of the trail that I actually desired. You know, I wanted another through hike, and I just thought, you know, a day hike is not going to satisfy me. It's not what I'm wanting, but it actually does help. It really does. Just to get out, exercise, be a part of nature again. When I finally did get myself out on some local trails around here, it really made me feel a lot better and, you know, reconnected with nature. And I realized that I really did miss not just the AT, but nature itself. You could even start running, you know, go to the gym, do some climbing. I know a lot of thru hikers who, when they get done with that long of a backpacking trip, they're like, hey, I can't get out there and do this again immediately, but they end up going to a climbing gym or finding some spots locally and kind of get into a new outdoors activity. I would say having some additional financial cushion for when you get done is pretty important. I think when folks get off the trail, they're broke, they're worn out, and the last thing they want to do is go straight into another job. So if you're able to save enough to kind of have some financial cushion once you get home, I really think that that could help prevent some stress on you. Next, create some kind of plan to focus your energy on something else. So every day you're working towards this goal of completing your thru hike. Well, now you need new goals. You need new plans and new ways to channel your energy into something else that brings you happiness. So for myself, what I did is while I was on my thru hike, I had a list going in my phone in the notes of things that I either wanted to learn about or read about or experience, maybe a new skill I wanted to try. And so I would list all of those things. That way when I got home, I would remember all of those things that I wanted to do, you know, post-trail, and I could go through that list and just kind of start marking some of them off. A lot of folks are depressed when they come home because, again, they went from, you know, kind of a blah spot in life to this amazing adventure back to some blah. So I think finding ways to implement something in your life that gives you passion every day is important. So if that means a career change, maybe starting a business, you know, whatever it is, maybe a side hustle, but something in there that gives you that drive and passion that you had on trail, but maybe not exactly in the same way, but finding a way to put, you know, that happiness into a daily routine. Another thing that helped me with feeling kind of bummed out from being off trail was trying to find a way to stay connected to the trail without physically being on it every day. And this channel helped me do that. So being able to kind of give information to others or help other people achieve their goals in backpacking or thru hiking, you know, it helped me stay part of that community. So I would suggest, you know, starting a channel or a blog, or if you don't want to do that, then even joining some of the backpacking forums online so you can answer questions for people who are wondering how to get into backpacking or maybe even have a thru hike plan in their future. Another way to potentially stay connected with the trail is to talk to some people about your experience. So maybe some Boy Scout troops, Girl Scout troops, some of the schools locally around you. I know folks have given talks at their local libraries. You know, any of those ways to share your experiences and maybe even inspire other people while staying connected with the trail and getting to talk about your experience. I think that that helped me a lot. You can also do some trail maintenance. So if you live near one of these trails or, you know, even local trails, I'm sure they're always looking for volunteers for trail maintenance. And another way to stay connected is to do trail magic. And if you've ever experienced trail magic, it's pretty wonderful, but I think the feeling that I get when I'm giving trail magic is even better. So I went in 2016, the year after I finished my thru hike, and did trail magic at Brown Gap, where I had received some pretty epic trail magic. And I did this trail magic with part of my tramily. So, you know, again, staying connected with the people, whether it's the current thru hikers or your past friends, you know, but I think maybe even doing an annual trip like that to do some trail magic with a group of people you were friends with would be a really cool way to stay connected with one another and the trail in general. And one thru hiker that contributed her experience with post-trail depression said that it helped her a lot to look back through her pictures and videos. So she really recommended taking a lot of pictures and a lot of videos. That way you can always review and kind of reminisce the good times that you had. One thing that really helped a lot of folks who experienced post-trail depression was planning their next adventure. So yeah, you might not be able to get done with one adventure, you know, take a couple weeks off and hit it on the next one again. But you can go ahead and start planning, whether that's saving up some money or just mapping things out, learning more about the next trail you want to do or whatever that is, putting that energy into planning the next adventure. But something that I think is important to add here is to recognize that nothing is ever going to be like that first thru hike again. Even if I went myself and thru hiked the Appalachian Trail again, it's not going to be the same people. It's not going to be the same experience and the same weather and, all of the new experiences again. It will be different. So you can never go back to that same exact thing. And so I think realizing that this experience was amazing and it was wonderful and I enjoy reminiscing about it, but that is in the past. It's not going to happen again. So while I can appreciate that it happened and enjoy the memories, it's now time to move on and make new memories and have new adventures with potentially new friends or even some of the same friends from, the old adventure. But just realizing that life does keep going forward, I think is very important. Finally, something that I like to do and try to, really be conscious of is the way that I bring lessons from the trail to everyday life. So one example of that is realizing that there are certain things that I cannot change. And I've mentioned this before, but for example, if it's really windy and really rainy and I'm having a backpack in it and then I have to set my tent up in it and I have to be in it for 2 or 3 days straight, that's a pretty miserable experience. It's real easy to get angry and frustrated and put all of this energy into this emotion that's not going to change anything. So I think for myself, learning to really put my energy and efforts into something that I can influence or potentially change instead of wasting it on things that, I can't change. So I don't really like to get political, but for example, politics. I know so many people who get fired up and I'm not saying, don't pay attention to what's going on in the world or anything like that, but, how much energy are you placing into something that you can't change versus, your family and how happy they are and how happy you are and the things that y'all do together, or even growing a garden, cut off the TV, quit being mad at it and go outside and plant a garden. I'm just saying that for myself, I like remembering those lessons that I learned on trail and finding ways to implement them in my everyday life. So those are my suggestions and the suggestions of others on how they dealt with post-trail depression. If you have been through this yourself, whether it was with backpacking or some other wonderful experience or adventure, I would love to hear your experience with that in the comments below. You never know who you might can help. And before I go, the last thing I want to say today is that if you're experiencing post-trail depression or any kind of depression for that matter, sometimes the things that I talked about today won't help all the way. It's not enough. So if you're feeling that way, please, please, please do not be afraid to let somebody know that you are struggling and seek the help that you need, because I know somebody loves you more than you could possibly know and cares about what you're going through, even if you don't feel like they do. So again, if you're having some struggles, please do not be afraid to seek out the help that you might need. And with that, I thank y'all so much for watching, and we will see y'all next time.